was really Roger who never does this, and he basically reached out at one point and sent me an email and he said, stop being a jackass and come down here. Like, get your ass down here and do this movie. You need to do this movie.
Hearing this was the reason I first watched Sicario. Well, that and watching Jarhead a couple of days before. But it completely mesmerised me, and Roger Deakins is to thank for that. The ultra-realistic, non-stereotypical look is simply unseen in this kind of thriller, and today I want to look at how he achieved it. I'll be looking at the equipment he used, his use of lighting, and looking at the lighting plans, as well as how he told the story through images. To look at the equipment Deakins used, he obviously went for Arri's cameras, the Arri Alexa XT-M, XT Plus and XT Studio to be exact. The XT, which stands for Extended Technology, was released in 2013 and featured a range of cameras, which was pretty much what I just mentioned above, with the addition of the Alexa fiber remote. The M, however, stands for Modular, which allowed for the sensor to be removed from the main body of the camera, allowing for easier handheld when necessary. Whereas the Studio had a built-in video transmitter which made the camera smaller and lighter, again allowing for easier handheld if it was needed. As for the lenses, it was of course going to be Zeiss's Master Primes, Deakins' favourite lenses at the time. These are a set of spherical lenses that give an unbelievably clean and precise look. You can open them up all the way without losing much if any sharpness, and they feature almost zero distortion, creating a near optically perfect image that Deakins strives for. Interestingly though, there is one more camera that was used on Sicario, and it was the FLIR SC8300. From the name you can probably guess that it is an infrared thermal imaging camera. However, I know nothing about them, and all I can find is the fact that it has HD resolution and that different lenses are available for it. But let's move on to how Roger Deakins lit these scenes. Now, the lighting in Sicario is natural, really natural, and I don't mean that in the way that Deakins set the camera up and was good to go, because he didn't, and we have the lighting plans to prove it. I mean it in the way that every shot looks like elevated realism. Well, some do, and some just look insanely raw. To start, let's look at the beginning with the tract house. Now, this is a location that was surprisingly difficult to find, as Deakins puts it in his blog. They needed a location that looked like it was part of a neighbourhood, but for obvious reasons had to be removed from it. After finding the right house for the exteriors, they went on building the interiors on a sound stage. As for the lighting of the stage, we can see from the lighting plans that Deakins used a lot of space lights to create a balanced, soft light. However, the ones marked black were not used for the first tract house scene. He then added several T12 Fresnels to replicate beams of sunlight through the windows and would separate them to avoid double shadows. He then placed 22 2K Blondes through a light grid diffusion around the exterior. You'll note that these rear windows are never seen close up though. The scene in Fausto's estate drew me in immediately, as there is an ominous presence that hits you when you first see it, and in order to do that, Deakins needed to find the right location. And they got lucky. When scouting, they found the perfect house with a grand dining room that they could black out during the day, as well as an exterior dining room that could be kept in a pool of light at night time. In lighting the estate, Deakins needed it to feel practical, as even though it appears as one house in the film, it's actually in a suburb. As we can see from the lighting plans, they ended up using post light along the driveway, which was actually just a road, 300 watt bulbs to light the trees, and garden lights for the path leading up to the house. Now, in order to light the exterior dining scene, Deakins had another stroke of luck, as the owner of the house had strung up golf ball bulbs for some temporary lighting, and it was perfect for Deakins, so he went out and bought another string of them, and the scene was ready to shoot. Scenes like this really astound me, as even though I know in the back of my mind that the lighting was meticulously planned, it just looks so unbelievably natural. But how does Deakins do this? Well, you first need to find the right location, and the one they ended up choosing actually seemed quite impractical at first. To have a look at the lighting plan, we can see that they swapped out all of the existing lights on set, replacing them for 2K Blondes with light diffusion with quarter CTOs. These lights would never be at 100% brightness though, with the central ones being around 90% and the ones on the side being at around 70%. As for the rest of the lighting for the scene, Deakins fitted the parking lot area with 2K or 1.5K globes and left the lights on the west side of the building alone. He also used little additional lighting except for when he wanted to wrap around a face. Thinking about the visual storytelling aside though, the overall look for Sicario is very clean, and I hate using that word to describe cinematography. Now, the first thing I want to touch on is the absence of the stereotypical orange hue that blasts every Hollywood film that's even partially set in Mexico. Sure, there are scenes where it's a bit warmer, but compared to something like Breaking Bad, it's nothing. One of the most famous shots in the film is this, where we see an array of silhouettes against an alluring sunset. Now, the use of silhouettes is often used when you want to create suspense, but also isolation of characters. I mean, this scene leaves them out in the open, showing both potential danger and alienation from the rest of the world, but also silhouettes just look really good. We can't not look at the use of composition when talking about visual storytelling, and cutting the frame is something that Deakins does consistently. Now, this means that he uses objects in the frame, whether it's architecture or characters, to focus the audience's attention in a specific point. He would also use it to simplify the frame, so that as an audience, the only thing we see is what he wants us to see. Now, the other thing I noticed about the composition was that it's rare to see full body shots. We are often in a medium or medium close-up, which would suggest that we are watching the films through the eyes of the character and not as an observer. For example, when ambushing the cartel, it feels like we're one of the officers. So overall, Deakins utilised practical lighting in order to create an ultra-natural environment. Through his use of cutting the frame, we only ever see exactly what he wants us to see, and he doesn't rely on making the film orange to show that we're in Mexico. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. You know what to do if you did. If you have a recommendation for an analysis, leave it down below. Thank you so much for watching, and maybe I'll see you next time. Bye.